Hello, and welcome back to Key the Lights here on Princeton Community Television. I'm Misha.
I'm Jenny.
I'm Rachel.
And here with us today we have Mr. Andrew Koontz, a Mercer County freeholder, a Hightstown High School teacher, and a fiddler. So, to start us off today, could you explain what a freeholder is and how the term came about?
Oh, okay. Absolutely. A freeholder in New Jersey is a county official. We live in Mercer County, and in Mercer County we have a board of chosen freeholders who act as the elected officials, the governing body that governs the county. In Mercer County we have a county executive who's kind of like a mayor of a county, and we also have a board of chosen freeholders who are kind of like a borough council for a county. So we do the budget approvals and all those things that elected officials do to keep track of taxpayer money and address taxpayer concerns. The term freeholder is perhaps the most unusual thing about it. It's an old colonial term that means landowner. Maybe at one time you had to be a landowner in order to serve on the board of chosen freeholders, but you no longer have to be a landowner. You can rent and be a freeholder. But in other parts of the world, this same job is called county commissioner, county legislator, maybe even county judge and county supervisor way out west. But here in New Jersey, we're unique. We call these folks freeholders, and I happen to be one of them.
So what made you decide to go on to be a freeholder?
Well, that's a good question. I had become interested in politics when I was a young man, and I served as the Democratic Party chairman here in town in Princeton for a number of years, and then I decided to run for borough council, and I served on Princeton Borough Council out of this building for about 6 years, back when it was the Borough Hall for Princeton Borough. And I started getting interested in county politics, and so I decided to make the jump for county freeholder about 2010. So I've been there since then. I was first elected freeholder, I think 2010, although I'm not quite sure.
So what do you do in your daily life, and why did you want to be a freeholder? What do you like about it?
What I like about being a freeholder is I do like Mercer County. I like getting around in Mercer County. I love the towns of Mercer County. I like Princeton. I live here. I teach in Hightstown, which is also in Mercer County. And the towns of Lawrence, Trenton, Hamilton, I think it's a great place. We live in a great county, and it's very exciting to serve on the freeholder board and try to help out where I can in public service for this county. So I enjoy it.
So to your teaching, what do you teach?
Well, I teach television broadcasting. I'm the television broadcasting teacher at Hightstown High School. So I teach a couple of classes. I teach beginning TV production as a teacher. I also teach advanced television production for people who have already been through the TV production. I also teach broadcast journalism. So they do news stories and all that kind of stuff in that class. So it's been interesting. I've been trying to get the program to grow, and that's what I do in Hightstown for the Hightstown Rams.
So why did you want to be a part of the teaching when you were teaching film and television? Why did you want to do that?
Well, I kind of got into it maybe not exactly for the right reasons. I was serving on Princeton Council, and I was commuting to New York because I was a television editor in New York. I worked for CBS Television as an editor, and I wanted to be a freeholder, and in order to do that, I don't think I really could juggle commuting to New York City every day and making it back and doing all the things that are expected of a county official. So I had to make a career decision, and I decided to go into teaching, thinking it would kind of maybe free up and I would at least be here at home and not in New York City trying to scramble back for meetings. So it eventually worked out well. It took a while to learn how to be a teacher. It's interesting becoming a teacher because you kind of get tossed into the classroom with a bunch of teenagers like yourself and say, go for it, start teaching them. And that's what I ended up doing. So it took a little while to learn how to actually be a teacher other than just doing it. And it's worked out. I enjoy it. So, and it has me here in Mercer County all day. So it worked out.
How long have you been a teacher?
I've been a teacher since I think about 2009 or so. So I made the transition from working in New York as an editor to being a teacher around about that time. So, gosh, it's 8 years now.
What is difficult for you when you're teaching and also when you're a freeholder? What's the difficult part of your job?
Oh, I think it's balancing it everything. You know, everyone wants you to do the best job you can at everything that you do. So, you know, when you're at the high school, you know, the high school administrators like the vice principal and principal, they want you to have your teaching job as the priority, as your first priority. But then the voters of Mercer County believe that my being a freeholder should be my first priority. So I have to, you know, balance that. But, you know, a freeholder is supposed to be a part-time job. So it does work. I can devote my attention to my students as I should. And then after the school day is over, you know, do what's necessary to get around the county, meet voters in the county, and attend county meetings and help out.
So, how important do you think politics is in Princeton, and you know, getting into politics?
Well, I think politics is one of the major sports of Princeton. I mean, it's there's a lot of politics here in Princeton, and I really enjoyed serving as a Princeton councilman. It was a lot of work. I think actually, in terms of amount of hours spent, it's comparable to being a freeholder because the folks in Princeton really there's a lot of demands on your time as a Princeton council person, and the people that are serving as a council people, you know, hats off to anybody who serves in public life because it's a lot of work. So no, it's very important because I think people in Princeton care a tremendous amount about this community, and they are have very strong opinions about how the community should be. And as an elected official, you have to weigh, and not everybody agrees, you know, in Princeton on what the future direction of the town should be. And as the council needs to weigh all those things, the council and the mayor needs to weigh all those opinions and what they think, what's best for going forward. And so it's a challenging job. And local politics here in Princeton is very important, and their relationship with the county is very important as well.
How do you think it's important to become a freeholder? What's your opinion on that?
Well, somebody has to keep an eye on these things. The budget of Mercer County is $300 million a year. So we are spending taxpayer monies of almost $1 billion every 3 years, if you think that way. And there has to be folks who are willing to keep an eye on that kind of county spending and those kind of county responsibilities. And I think it's very important to have an elected officials, people like yourselves, though I don't know what the age qualification is for freeholder, but ordinary folks like who are, you know, citizens of the community who are there to keep an eye on things and to decide what's the best policies for the county, how best to spend the taxpayers' money, and to make sure that money isn't being wasted.
How did your preconceptions of these jobs actually compare to actually doing the jobs in both teaching and being a freeholder?
I'm always surprised by how much work things actually turn out to be. I always have, I think, a vision in my mind, and I think that goes to whether, you know, when I was doing schoolwork in high school, the work I did in college, the jobs that I've had, everything always turns out to be a lot more work than I expected. So I think the time commitment on the job surprised me.
And I noticed, we were doing some research, and there's been a steady decline in voting in Princeton lately. So what do you think?
You're asking me about the a decline in voter participation?
Yeah.
Well, I would have to see that. I would have to see those statistics. You might have them. I think one of the problems is in trying to measure voter voter participation is sometimes the voter rolls get inflated. Oh, here we go.
We'll
We
prepare.
had 35% in 2013 for governor, 36% in 2014. We don't have the 2016 election in here. But in general, Princeton votes very, very strongly in a presidential year. And that's because of the presence of the college campus and the college voters. And they have a tendency to come out more, everybody has a tendency to come out more when the president is on the ballot. The office of president is on the ballot. And I think people need to understand that every elective office is extremely important, and perhaps no more important is the more local it gets is how more directly it impacts your life. So to a Princeton resident, really the most important election for you is probably Princeton Council, because that's going to be the day-to-day, your day-to-day existence as a resident of Princeton is going to be mostly impacted by the work that they do here on the local level. Next comes the county, and from there the state, and from there the federal government. But sometimes in voting we see the priorities are exactly reversed. They come out for the presidential elections and they don't come out for the local elections. And I think all elections are important, and as best as you can get the message out that everyone should participate and try to be aware of local priorities and what's going on locally. That's going to have the most direct impact on your life.
How has having either of these jobs impacted your personal life? Like, is there something that you've learned through doing these jobs that you didn't expect?
You're always learning. And I freely admit, when I first went on to Princeton Council, I didn't know a lot about police work and what policemen do and how their day-to-day lives go. It's a big part of the local budget is police and first responder issues. So you learn a lot about how a community, the public safety aspect of a community goes. I did not know a lot about that going into it. In the county, for example, still law enforcement is very important. We have a Mercer County prison, we have a jail, we have sheriff's departments, we have the courts. And so you're always learning because you're now in the position of, and this is the way our government is designed. We're not looking for experts to sit on governing bodies to oversee these kinds of operations. We're looking for, elected officials, voters, residents of the community who are our representatives. And so you're coming into the job, and now all of a sudden you're approving the budget for sheriffs and the sheriff's department or the jail and the warden's priorities. And so you have to learn a lot on the job. And what goes into, for example, repairing a road, what goes into repairing a bridge, how much does repairing a bridge, how much should it cost? In Mercer County, we have an airport. I've learned a lot about airport operations that I didn't know before. So you learn a lot.
If you weren't a teacher in Freeholder, what would you be?
I expect I'd still be editing as an editor in New York, but I've always tried to have my hand in a lot of things. I'm not exactly an expert in everything. I often think of myself as a jack of all trades, master of none.
And what have you learned from teaching other people?
Well, I think teaching is a very fulfilling career. I like helping young people to learn how to just learn how to be able to create. Because I know that the vast majority of my students are not going to go into careers in television. And that's not what's going to happen. I'm teaching them TV broadcasting. I know that what I'm not doing is training them for their future jobs. What I'm trying to teach them is skills so that they can create and learn how to start a project and finish it and do the best job they can from start to finish. I love teaching the subject that I teach because it's very multidisciplinary. In other words, you have to, in order to excel in TV and production work, you have to be able to do camera work. You have to be able to draw. You got to be able to write. You got to be able to act and perform. You need to learn how to use lights, etc. There's just so much involved in it, and that it's not an isolated, not to pick on math teachers. Let's pick on math teachers, right? We're not
Sure.
just teaching an isolated subject such as math. We're teaching, you might actually have to use math in order to work in TV production. It's very multidisciplinary. And so guiding kids through that process, and they got to do it themselves, writing, conceiving, working on something, and actually creating an edited video project. I think that's teaching them to take a project from start to finish and work with each other, because nobody can create television on their own. It's not a one man, one woman job. You need to have people cooperating with each other. So it's just helping students do that, I think, prepares them well for their future lives and careers.
Wow. Jack of all trades.
Master of none.
Master of none. Well, speaking of jack of all trades, there's a third thing that you do that we haven't really touched on yet.
Right.
And you are a fiddler.
I am.
So, a question I asked earlier because I was genuinely confused. What is the difference between a fiddle and a violin?
I'm asked that all the time. If that is the one thing that a person who plays the fiddle or violin is asked all the time, is what is the difference between a violin and a fiddle? I'm here to tell you, and everybody else that asks me, there is no difference. A violin and the fiddle are the exact same instrument. It's just two names for the exact same thing.
But they sound different.
They do.
It's, well, jazz piano and classical piano are different approaches to the same instrument. Fiddling versus, classical violin performing are different approaches to the same instrument. And yes, it does sound different, right? Because there's a different approach. You handle the bow differently if you're fiddling as opposed to if you're trying to play classical music. So, no, it's the same instrument. It's just an incredibly versatile instrument that makes a lot of different sounds. So it's not like a triangle, right? Where
Ding.
right. You can make a lot of different sounds with it. And actually, you could probably make a lot of different sounds with a triangle too if you're an expert at it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a very versatile instrument. It can sound differently and different approaches to playing it.
So what do you like about fiddling?
Oh, I think it's a tremendous amount of fun, and I've been doing it a long time. I started playing when I was 7 years old. I was classically trained. I played classical music from when I was 7 to about 18. Then I went away to college, and I didn't play it as much. I played the electric bass instead, so I played
Cool.
different instruments, but violin has always sort of been my main instrument. Fortunately, the instrument is not very large, and so as I moved from place to place as a young man, I had my violin that my father bought me when I was 13. I just sort of kept it.
Aw.
So I still have it. And I started playing it again about the same time I started, maybe a couple of years before I started teaching about it. So I've been playing it again for about 10 years.
So you've always been very musical in your life?
Yes. I have a musical family. My father played guitar and sings. My brother is a musician. And my father's father was a saxophone player in a swing band. So we come from a musical family.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, last obvious question. Has anyone ever asked you to play the fiddler on the fiddler, in the fiddler on the roof?
No one has ever asked me to play the fiddler and the fiddler on the roof. No.
That's a good question.
Is it a demanding role? I'm not even really familiar.
I don't know. I think you just play a fiddle on the roof.
On the roof. Is it, do you play klezmer style? Is that what you're supposed to play?
What's that?
Klezmer? Oh, it's a fiddling style. You see, that's what is so interesting, is that you can play, there's fiddling, there's klezmer, you can play Irish style music, which is what I play mostly. You can play bluegrass style, you can play Texas swing. It's just a whole range of different styles of music that you can play with the violin.
Wow. So have you ever been frustrated at a point with the instrument? Because I used to play violin. I know it's very tricky.
Mm-hmm.
I thought
And
you played tuba.
I played violin, trombone, and tuba.
Mm-hmm.
Not all at once.
Oh,
My
Which
special,
one did you find to be the easiest?
well, the most suited for me was tuba. because of these here lips. Got them from my dad. He was a good tuba player. And, well, but I know that violin was very hard. Especially just learning to make, you know, a appropriate, like, stroke to make a good noise.
Right. I think the learning curve on the violin is very, very challenging because of the bow.
Yes.
And the violin will make horrible noises if played incorrectly. So I think you have to make it through, what do you think, 6 or 7 months of pretty bad noises until you start finally making things start sounding good. So yourself and those around you are in for a rough ride until that happens. But I think if you can make it through that, it does start to pay off. But it's not an instrument like a guitar, for example, that, you know, if it's tuned and you put your fingers down on the frets, the frets and you strum through it, it will give you a nice sound and you feel rewarded. Instead, the violin for many weeks and months will make you wonder whatever possessed you to try this thing out in the first place.
Yeah, especially if you live in an apartment, like I do.
Okay, the neighbors are suffering along with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So what kind of performances do you do?
Well, I play a lot of Irish music. We play around. I'm actually playing tomorrow. I'll be at a place in New Hope called Dubliner on the Delaware with my good friend Bill O'Neill, who's a singer guitar player, and we're a duo. We play a lot. I can play. Also, we have a trio called Ballycastle, and we perform around. We work a lot in the month of March, which is St. Patrick's month, essentially. St. Patrick's Day is in that month, and we play a lot at that time. There's a high demand for Irish music at that time. But I play mostly Irish music. I play with my brother and father in more of a bluegrass Americana band. And we're going to be going back into the studio to record in early November. My brother's written a couple of songs, and we're going to try to perform them and do that. So that's other things that are coming up.
Do you enjoy performing and recording?
I do. I was nervous about it at first when I was a kid, but I don't get many nerves at all anymore. I just will sit there and play. You know, I enjoy it and it's even better when folks enjoy it with you. So, yeah, it's good.
What's been the highlight of your performing career? Like maybe a special night where somebody came up to you and said, "That was really great," just something that kind of brightened it up.
Oh, that's a good question. There was a recital a long time ago that I played with my brother. He plays the piano. He played at Fairleigh Dickinson University, and that was really, you know, that really went well. So I remember that one. That was one I kind of put in the memory bank, because that was a time when the violin really seemed to work well and everything was great.
So, would you like to play for us?
Sure, absolutely. Here's a little guy I was talking about.
Does he have a name?
No, I don't think I've ever named him. It was made by a guy named Teller. It's a German violin.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Pleasure
It was
to be here.
a delight. It was an interesting interview. And now Mr. Koontz is going to give us a treat by playing the fiddle for us.
This was called Harvest Home. That was an traditional Irish tune called Harvest Home, and a hornpipe, which has that sort of lilting quality. What I'm going to play now is can be an Irish tune, but I'm going to give it a sort of an American hit. This is called The Red-Haired Boy. Let's try a jig. Okay. All right, we'll do a jig. Probably the most famous of Irish jigs. It appeared in a movie of John Ford, where what was her name? Maureen. Someone's gonna kick me for not remembering this name, but whatever. She was shown washing clothes, and this is the Irish washerwoman.